11/10/2016. Last Tuesday was the 2nd of the month, on which we practice metta or loving kindness. Before our sit, we listened to a talk by the master of my master, Jack Kornfield, entitled Intention of the Bodhisattva. I have provided a link to it. I feel that wise intention is perhaps the most important of all Buddhist tenets, because one has to first pause and decide that they will make the effort to speak and act in kindness before that kind speech or action can occur. During the talk, we were asked to sit a few moments in silence and decide for ourselves what our intention of the Bodhisattva would be. 4/20/2009. An unstoppable force. When you lose your way, it's best to start from the beginning. In the presence of hateful men is a wisdom that burns. It was my sin to forget this. Truth is central to my philosophy. Wisdom, its heavy form, a terrible burden, now burns its way like phantom antlers across my shoulders. Strength has reared its many heads and multiple ugly faces in my life. I will embrace this death, embrace this change, even though at times it is a terrible foe to face. It is now time that they have all gathered, believing me now weak enough to be challenged. Now is when I shall prove the courage of my conviction. You will know that I am a Titan, by definition a giant among men, by action a master of great achievement. Let us begin. First on our agenda, my jury, composed of my so-called peers, smearing their lyrical jeers in tones of sudden elevation. You believe now that you stand above me. So be it, my friends. I will climb right over you to attain the heights I shall need to spread life. For the word is the life, the light of humanity, commune or communication. So that my best friend and his girlfriend could assuage each other's guilt and shame, I was accused of atrocity. I admit to lying only about the small love we shared, and told anyone who wished to hear it that we had not been intimate. And now, any that have passed the test, remained at my side through a moment of weakness, those have earned the right to hear the whole story. Some might consider their person like myself, who preaches so mightily for truth, for dignity. To commit such a terrible sin reveals the worst hypocrisy. I imagine that you would be right. Today, I have been a hypocrite. My strength lies not in perfection, but in its most dogged pursuit, and I can tell you this day, without reservation, that I am wiser, stronger. It is by way of faults and mistakes that I have grown. And dare you deny even now that I have spoken with the voice that echoes with thunder? And so again I shall, for now is my rebirth. When you turn away from truth, the only choice is to reveal your lies or keep lying. A simple choice, so I choose the former. Let us unfurl the roster. What crimes have I, the culprit, the offender, the malefactor, namely myself, committed without remorse, with a villain's treacherous capacity to perform the unthinkable? The accused stands before you walking with a willing stride to the judgment, in this so-called terrible hour, when I have been brought so low, or so it would seem. The accused stands charged with these offenses: false friendship, a false face thrown over a false voice, a broken sincerity, a dishonest, dishonored destroyer of love, an opportunist, even a ravager. To become one's true self, we need only cast off the false, the pall that is thrown over our faces, to create, in the minds of others, a monster, something to abhor, a tool of separation. For my ex-friend, full of guile, but no true wisdom, believes that by defaming me to others I shall grow weaker. To become one's true self, we need only cast off the false, that which we craft for ourselves. Though our intentions may have been somewhat noble, more so selfish. This truth, the love between myself and a certain sweet young lady, it was our secret, our naughty little magic. And though now she has thrown me to wolves to escape the wrath of her lover's wounded pride, truth and honor remain mine. I am brave, not proud. I shall shed this old, false skin with the ease of a serpent, whom, by way of growth, its definition, too broad for its former casting, bursts forth. And it has little to do with choice, my so-called friends. More to do with the emergence of a truer nature. If you would know me, look on me now, and with such sibilant grace, defiant to the end of day, I retain the light, long after the inky spill of dark and death knell of night surrounds. You have gathered around about, my rivals. Are you bold enough now to face me, when our shared humanity is plain for all to see? Shall I take a knee to invite your strikes? Do you truly believe that I will ever fall in the face of scrutiny, ever again? I have learned that lesson well. Death before dishonor. And so, here is my full confession, that which my best friend is not man enough to hear me speak. I have indulged in the worst blindness, a willful blindness. I have loved not wisely, but too well. I have suffered the fall of Shakespeare's ill-fated Moor. However, Iago was also myself. All the tragic characters flowing through me. Their charade my every day. For a little while at the beginning of this tale, several years ago, I loved a young girl. All my great heart was hers, far too much so, for there was no balance of powers. My reason had been utterly deserted. Through the constant vacuum that winds in circles about the ugliest of emotions, fear, jealousy, eclipsing the voice that had once brought her comfort. Closer to God, she called it, when I spoke softly, words of beauty. But I strayed too far from the path, for far too long. With rough hands I had strangled her affections, murdering our love with irrationality, a need to possess fully the unfathomable, the very mote of her soul. It was in this time when she was torn between loyalty and abhorrence, both seeming equals in measure. My girlfriend had met my best friend, David. He had an easy manner, all charm, all seeming goodness. She loved him with devotion, but for me, cold flesh. He was the far more blessed. As I slowly began to allow myself understanding, in all ways that mattered, she was his. Hate began to fill in spaces that her love had been. And rather than hate my innocent friend for his unfortunate beauty, his natural desirability, I embraced him, pushing the woman I adored to the side, turning with great force to his side. He seemed a good, courageous man, worthy of devotion. Years began to pass as I walked in his shadow, though it seemed at times that he should walk in mine. His strides were not great. He was all guile and illusion, a master of misdirection, his libidinous and two-faced flatteries lending to his features a false fire. I saw but did not look, employing much deception in his dalliances. He was obtuse when the damage he had caused others was forced before his face. He never could own his deeds or himself. His insides were frozen solid, stiff with feigned indifference. He was simply too afraid of his own heart, drowning its beats in alcoholic debauchery, sharpening his wit and skills in coitus, in a vain hope that no greater depth should be plumbed. He fears no man. He fears his own soul. I appreciated his stubborn efforts to extricate my bulbous, brooding form from this faded green tin can, coaxing me forth, like a stubborn bit of slime, sliding lethargically to drip from the lid with a dull splat into his hand. To be courted from my self-imposed exile, it seemed the highest compliment that I had ever received. Such a vibrant person had chosen me to walk at his side, though just a step behind. He was always the master of our time, demanding my arrivals, commanding departures. My loyalty was blind, my obedience a central contingent of our relations. There were many signs I ignored in his subtle desire to extinguish in me all that which he was not capable of. Depth, courage, honesty. He sought to hone his crafts in my flesh, prove his greatness by dishonoring mine. He has proven to be a swine, accusing me of terrible things in a maddened attempt to return my slight. I'm so sorry to hurt you, David, but you had broken up. She seduced me with gentle love, and I her with gentle strength. Please forgive me someday, but do it for yourself. Don't fill with hate. I am not innocent here. I did share something physical briefly with the wrong girl, at the wrong time. One whom he called mine with his mouth, referring only to himself with a child's evil, and he made sure that I heard him utter this magic word when I was in earshot. My old friend. No. Please don't play the fucking head games. Why don't you know, trust me, to respond with truth? I'm too smart, too strong for this. It was important to his design that I know, more than she needed to understand, that she was his, though the great irony lay on the inside. Her heart, her mind were her own. Why is it a sin to love two men differently? He owns now a vain infatuation, an illusion of a girl. I had learned from my previous mistakes that a person can never be considered one's property. Now for the actual crime that consequently does not exist. That for which the accused has been crucified in the eyes of his peers. David had spurned her one night, cast her from his life, seemingly, with the earnest desire that she never return. Though it was a test to see if she was his, truly his, a toy, a marionette, that when its strings are jerked harshly, will dance to life, soaring back to your hand. She and I had believed it best, for there was no love in him, only vicious hatreds that had long lingered beneath his smiling visage. I counseled him to leave her, and her to leave him, and never did I intend to come between them. My initial motivations were pure. Restore their balance, which is to say, their peace of mind, which lies in privacy. The careful examination, exoneration of ugly emotions, giving rise to evil in action. Throwing many foul, personal, and wounding imprecations at her in his vile attempt to break her to service, she was lost, twisting in the wind, wondering why she had become so devoted to a selfish and hurtful man, whose first inclination at any sign of trouble is to lie to himself, his lover, and friends. It was in this time when she and I had been filled with the same emotions, the same confusions, that we found each other, and suddenly found each other fair. The love between us grew slowly to this point, lingered in a sweet agony, and died today. It was beautifully short-lived. It was pleasing at first to touch minds, compare in a delight of seeming similarity, intelligence that could pass between us. We only adored each other's words. This progressed naturally through mutual expressions of affection, of shared admiration, into the sharing of some time, to learn about one another more fully, try to understand why we filled each other with smiles. His resistance of our gentle efforts to forge a friendship had marred our growing love, and the first time she came to me after being rebuked by him, for his crime she had committed in his imagination, I held her, spoke to her, soothing words, attempting to dispel unjust hurts with reason. How could I not? She was ragged, alone, lost. Even now I understand. We did nothing else. I healed her a bit. She returned to his heel willingly. so he could love her body, but never her soul. I offered no protest, out of respect. I still have immense respect, but am not being treated in kind. It's a pity. They should know that I would openly roar truth. She had extended no invitation on our first night together. We gathered, it seemed, just to huddle beneath the black storm cloud that David had become, awaiting his thunder. We discussed nothing else, only our wonder at why my friend was being so awful. On another occasion, the night in question, we had been drawn magnetically to one another, our hurts pulsing in time, our longings mirrored in the purest desire to share the simple comfort. We were both lost, searching, in need of some small affirmation that we were both truly lovable. We had both learned to grow cold, loveless, in the presence of hateful men. It was pure, full of tenderness, compassion. And after all, we thought that David was out of the picture. He had been texting her for hours, cruel words, the cruelest I had ever seen. I couldn't believe this was my old friend. We had tried to convince each other and ourselves that it was nobody's business. Nobody would understand how innocent it had been. But truth always comes out, first through the eyes, proceeding directly down into the mouth. Cracks like a whip against your tongue in its urgency to do surgery to your features. My life is now a mess, but I've never been so strong. I don't regret it. My friend, though in some ways kind, was a very arrogant and disrespectful man, constantly intimating my inferiority to him. I showed him the error of both our ways. I'm sorry, though, that it came to this. Sometimes you hurt the ones you love. The ones that love you hurt you. And sometimes they demand that you obey. I will not. No one will, forever. The brief, doomed love affair. It was something we both needed at the time. Nothing more. I just regret the really ugly lies. We were both willing sinners committing no true sin. Only a temporary love to soothe the empty hours. It hurts that we have all lied. All of us. And we thought we were such close friends. Brothers. Hubris is a stabbing pitchfork. A rake hidden by leaves stepped on and summarily slapping me in the face. Worse than fists is the shame. And I had thought myself such an honest person. Perhaps I am now. I have a lot to be ashamed of. Apathy, cowardice, when these were an easier embrace than meeting and mastering challenges, rather than climbing over obstacles and becoming a man. I will make the effort. I committed no crime, invited to every touch, and when we were both plastered, a brief connection was formed. Nothing more. It was so brief that it's ridiculous to face so much scorn. You'd laugh if it was on YouTube, I'm sure. I did hurt my best friend. Murdered his love. I am a murdering bastard. Though I feel much remorse, I feel things like this occur so that your true friends can be separated from amongst those who do not truly care for you. So that your true self can emerge from that which you wore over that person. I guess David didn't care about me. I guess I didn't care about him either. I never believed it before and people said, it just happens. But now that I've lived it, you end up standing there, holding the bag you just shit in, waiting for someone to punch it. Anyways, I understand if my betrayal has cost you all respect for me, my friends. At the time, it seemed the wisest course. But of course, in retrospect, we shouldn't have told until last, and then been honest. Having missed that opportunity, accept this one, or fuck off. Though recent, my lies are over. I will not be judged by the standards of the past. I will grow every day, commanding myself to become stronger. I do feel great remorse after all, and I realize now that my sometimes lies are briefly reasonable. I cannot help what my feelings lead me to believe will be insurmountable. I can only apologize and move forward. I feel bad for my old friend. His pride so injured by this lie. He can't even accept that a girl he loved could also willingly comfort me a little. Thus my new name is Ravager. May it crown my head. Anoint my brow with oil, for thou art with me. Will you deafen mine enemies? Cause them to fall before me? Lord God, I stand naked before them that are clothed. Your crimson aura humbling the proudest of men, softening the hardest of hearts. I know even after all this lying and betrayal, you must feel my truth speaking to you. A small comfort, a lie, repeated in the face of scrutiny, becomes a wound that others can see. A fear that denies us the right to speak candidly. I am truly speaking now. I have sufficiently humbled myself to redress my recent wrongdoing. And aren't I a tragic villain? Perhaps by this method I shall attract my own love, one worthy of my mostly honest heart. Lost friends, I'm so sorry. And I'm also sorry that you forced me to write this. What you have perpetrated against me, against my name, is truly terrible. What choice do I have? If you will stop now, I would be glad to as well. I have recanted all my lies, exposed all my doings, wrong or otherwise, for I understand that, of the three in this triangle, I am the strongest, no matter what happens next. The whys have been made clear to you all, my critics. You have been given my life, given my account of matters that should have remained private, and my answer to this, being betrayed by a girl whom I dared to love a little, and with great tenderness, but ultimately unwisely. Being impugned by a friend who stood alone in regard, whom I had never spoken ill of before and shall never again, for I know that, inside, there must be a good man somewhere, to have earned so much love. I must have faith in that. Being thrown to wolves, I am calm, and without protest will I bear the scorns that this veracity shall open me to. I shall return love for hatred, courage for fear. It is in this manner that I shall be an unstoppable force. I shall become love, giving birth to the new God, fearless love. You may compare me to the Christ comically if it suits your tastes. He too was a brave man with a wise heart that also faced temptation, who gave his love to his enemies. He also was a teacher of men. Those of you who fear, you may resume your fear of me, how I can become on any given day thunderous. I will roar forth, and in so doing, break the darkness. I refuse to fall. God will lift me up. 11/10/2016. During the talk, we were asked to sit a few moments in silence and to decide for ourselves what our intention of the Bodhisattva would be. Something simple was suggested like, I will be kind. For me, the answer was simple. It was something I had decided several years ago, during a time of great strife. I will be an unstoppable force. I will be love. An Unstoppable Force, or My Mostly Honest Heart, by Daniel Christensen, writing as the Fire Elemental.